Hello and welcome back to a slightly rejigged scenery version of Gotham once again for another Batman Miniatures Game 3rd Edition Battle Report. This time around we are going to be focusing in on a confrontation between the Court of Owls, who we've seen a few times before as I still try and get their formula right, and another new team actually, a team specifically, not a crew. I'm going for the Suicide Squad this time, and yeah, we'll see how they actually perform. It's an interesting kind of team with some very quirky rules which really put the pressure on them, and as I'll cover later on. See the description below for the usual offer from the Top Hatted Hamster for your first or next purchase, and let's, without further ado, get on to reviewing today's crews. As you can see, the Court is the first crew that we're going to be checking out today. I'm continuing on with Lincoln March as leader because his inspirability at close range really can make the difference between having suspect markers out and not, which is crucial for prey tokens. It really is. As you can see, still no Gotham Butcher this time. I've elected to go for slightly more but not quite as powerful Talons this time. So from left to right, you can see the 1880s Talon, Ephraim Newhouse with his amazingly useful primary target ability, which means he can use enemy suspect markers as his own. Henry Ballard, the tough one, Strix with her twin katanas, and another of the O'Malleys, the Sun, this time the same guy we took in the first Court of Owls battle report. Yes, I'm hoping that this gives us the good balance between having, sufficient numbers to actually, do actions and put down markers, etc., and still retaining the innate hitting ability of the Court of Owls assassins. And yes, as I stated before, the Suicide Squad is the second set of models we're using. They're a team from the team's little appendix to the rules, and they are an interesting one. They have a polyglot of characters from across various crews, as well as a bunch of neutral free agents in there. The actual crew's leader this time is going to be Deadshot, the Will Smith version from the Suicide Squad film. He's an incredibly powerful model with lots and lots of shooting abilities, and yeah, I'm hoping to get some good use out of him today. Haven't used him before. He's quite expensive, so sometimes quite tricky to fit into your average crew, but I thought I'd give him a run out today. Behind him you can see Harley Quinn, the one from the Back to Gotham set. I could have used the film version again, but she's a lot more expensive. Very powerful, let's not forget, but I really needed to fill out some space in the crew. It's a difficult balancing act to play. The Killer Croc there, just let to the right of Deadshot. He's a tough guy. He's not the most powerful version of Killer Croc, but still able to lay down some hurt and quite tough. Katana on the far right is a useful character to have. She's reasonably cheap. She's the version from the film as well. And finally, on the far left, you can see Killer Frost, one of the free agents I haven't had a chance to use yet, and she appeared on the roster and I kind of wanted to, so in she goes. The interesting thing about this crew, this team, even more than just the different variety of characters you can take, is the way that their objective deck is structured. With teams, for each team affiliation marker you have in the crew, so for example Harley Quinn is usually with Joker, Katana is usually with Batman, etc., etc. You can put 6 cards from that crew's deck into your objective deck, maximum 20 cards of course, remember that. And so that means that the Suicide Squad's objective deck is predominantly objective cards from the generic deck, with 6 cards from the Joker crew and 6 cards from the Batman crew in there as well. The rest having to be made up, like I said, from the generic cards, and then any extra ones for specific character models added in there as well. So it's going to be interesting. I've tried to give them ones they've got a reasonable chance of scoring quickly, because scoring victory points is very important to the Suicide Squad, as you'll find out when the game goes on. I hope not in a negative way. Okay, let's move on to deployment. Okay, models are all set up now, ready for the game to start, and well, first of all I picked up a deployment card. The first one I actually picked up was Taking Sides, which is actually kind of impossible for me to set up given my scenery, etc, etc. I could set it up and do it, it just wouldn't look very realistic at all, so I chose to redraw and got Showdown instead. That's the basic 8-inch deployment zone across the board, very much simpler to film and do, so we're going with that one. Right, Court of Owls, set up very much to make use of Lincoln March's Inspire, so everyone's within 8 inches of him. So as you can see, the man himself is standing atop the police car with Strix and Henry Ballard behind him. Ephraim Newhouse is over here by the sewer marker in the corner, and this side is taken up with O'Malley's son and the 1880s Talon. Moving around the board, we'll see how the Suicide Squad deployed. It had to move around to make it clear. You got Deadshot himself atop the construction work. He's got a good line of sight over everything. Assuming that he can get the night rules over and done with. There's lots of lampposts around. Got Katana down here. Killer Frost on the other construction work. Harley Quinn down here on the road level, and Killer Croc also by a sewer marker. He can make good use of those. Right, let's move on to the first turn. Okay, the first turns Take the Lead and Raise Plans phase are both completed now. In the first phase, we can reveal that Die Hard was played for the Suicide Squad, and that's the easy one where they just have to, they announce it now, and at the end of the turn it will score if one of their models is not killed or made unconscious. They chose Harley Quinn to be that model. In terms of the initiative roll, we're using blue for the Court of Owls, and as you can see, they won the initiative for this turn. Moving on to the Raise the Plan phase and Audacity, I can reveal that the Court of Owls played 2 cards from their hand. They have several that activate in this phase. First of all, the one they actually have a better chance of scoring is Gotham is Ours, which is where they choose 2 pieces of scenery. They chose the metro station and the subway station, the subway entrance, and the Suicide Squad chose 1 piece of scenery, and out of all of them they chose this little odd little flower beddy, fountainy type thing over here. I haven't decided what it's going to be yet. And yes, basically the Court of Owls have to have a suspect marker within 4 inches of each of those pieces of scenery by the end of the turn. If they do, they score 2 points. The second card that the Court of Owls played was Terrible Accident, which is 3 points, and if by the end of the turn or any point during the course of the turn they killed Deadshot as the enemy leader, then they will score 3 points for that. It's a bit of an ask for this first turn, but it helps them cycle their deck a bit and get through the cards they have a better chance of scoring, so there you go. In terms of Audacity placement, we'll start with the Suicide Squad. As you can see, we've got 1 for Deadshot, 1 for Killer Frost, Harley Quinn has Audacity, and finally Katana has Audacity. Out of 5 models, they just had to choose one who didn't get it, and that was Killer Croc. In terms of the Court of Owls, like I said, everyone is in range for Inspire for the time being anyway, so their early doors suspect marker placing is pretty much covered, but Lincoln March has Audacity, as does the 1880s Talon, Strix, and Ephraim Newhouse. Right, let's get on to some actual movement and doing of the stuff. Okay, so as the Court of Owls had first activation of the game, they activated the O'Malley's son to jump down off of this van thingy job here, and he moved forward. He was inspired, although not having Audacity still allowed him to put down this suspect marker, which satisfies their criteria for the objective card they played just now. Okay. The Suicide Squad elected to pass for their first opportunity to do so of the game, and so the Court of Owls went up next with the 1880s Talon, who scooched over there from her Audacity marker. Again, left it on the board, need to remember to pick those up. and yes, she moved over here, put down a suspect marker. Like, she had audacity, she didn't really need it as such, so in order to put the suspect marker down, but it's only first turn, not many opportunities for havoc anyway, but it does satisfy the criteria of being within 4 inches of this weird little fountainy thing. It's a civic project, of course it doesn't have a use, so yeah, that will score those 2 points should those 2 suspect markers exist at the end of the turn, but I don't think there's much the Suicide Squad can do to pick them up. Right, let's move back on. Louise Lincoln, aka Killer Frost, activated first for the Suicide Squad. They can't pass anymore, they only have 1. And she moved forward to put down a suspect marker. She had audacity, if you recall. No inspiration granted by the Suicide Squad team because there are no henchmen in there. So yes, all a bunch of free agents, I believe. So no inspiration at all. So they've got to make the use of all the actions they can get. Yes, she put down a suspect marker, but as you can see, it's a stinky fish because from the Joker component of their objective deck came "It doesn't look fresh" for 2 points. We've seen this many times before. There's the text. If that fish is still there by the end of the turn, then that'll be 2 points for the Suicide Squad. They need 6 victory points by the end of the turn to stop someone's head from exploding. Almost forgot to mention that as Killer Frost did also still have a special action remaining, she used the stop or halt ability on the O'Malley's Talon there, and yes, as you can see, the opposed willpower test was successful for her, and so O'Malley there was a -1 defense till the end of the turn, but he also takes this -4 movement counter. Okay, now we'll move on. Strix activated next for the Court of Owls, and yes, she moved forward. She did have audacity, if you recall. She used her bonus freebie manipulate action to put down a suspect marker. Good with the court to get good coverage of your suspect markers, I think. And she then engaged with her special action, her rapid fire ability, to get rapid fire on her throwing knives, I think is what they are. And she threw a slight barrage of them at Killer Frost, who'd moved into short range. Lucky she did activate rapid fire because only one of the shots got through to cause 1 blood damage to the supervillain. Okay, no cards played, so we'll move on. Harley Quinn could wait no longer and decided it was time for some clobbering, and with her incredibly fast movement of 13 inches, she zipped across from over there all the way into range of the 1880s Talon, because Harley's mallet has reach on it, so she was just in range of that. The 1880s Talon did not put any effort in to reduce the die pool, but Harley, as you can see, put a couple more dice and didn't really come to anything, unfortunately, because Harley's dice were appalling and all adequately defended by the Talon, with her own pretty good defense ratings. One of the strength die did crucially get through on a 6 though, so that's 2 stun damage for the mallet and also the knocked down effect. The reason there's a bit of distance, even more distance between them, is because Harley's mallet has push, which I sometimes forget about in the heat of battle, but not this time. So yes, that was an extra 1 inch push away for the one hit that got through. Didn't score any cards, didn't do anything else. Harley couldn't get into range to reveal the suspect marker, but she opted for hitting anyway, so no problem there. Court of Owls elected old man Henry Ballard to activate next as a Talon. He didn't have audacity. I believe Henry Ballard is the guy who took on the Birds of Prey in the Night of the Owls comic book arc, and yes, I quite liked him. He was really resilient. Anyway, he moved up, and without audacity he was still inspired, so he put down a suspect marker. Lots of good coverage for suspect markers. However, I'm starting to rue the placement of the owl markers I made. I really need to work on that for future games. Owl markers are over here. I never actually did show you these before, but yes, they're kind of crucial for marking enemies as prey, as we found before, and I'm kind of suffering for that, but we'll see how the game progresses. The Suicide Squad opted for Killer Croc to activate next. He used the sewers to move to move all the way over to it is Nathaniel O'Malley, the son of the O'Malley's family, was hiding into base contact with him. He doesn't have audacity though, so there's literally nothing else for him to do. He just had that one manipulate action. Okay, moving on to the Court of Owls. Okay, bit of an in-depth turn there, just featuring Lincoln March. I'll try and take you through it one step at a time though, because it got confusing for me at one point, involving lots of rules, so here we go. First of all, he engaged his flight ability. He's got jump jets on that power armoured suit, so from back here he could move a huge distance over to here, into contact with the stinky fish, if you recall, that Killer Frost put down. He used his manipulate action to take it off the board. First of all, so he revealed that as a suspect marker, and if I just reach back and pick up the card, because I've got to bring it with me of course, it doesn't look fresh. In all that text basically says that now Lincoln March is poisoned. He has poison value 1 for the remainder of the game. You can't really get rid of that. It's very difficult to get rid of that effect, but he's likely to take it. There's an off chance he'll take a single point of blood damage at the end of each turn. There's only 4 turns in the game, so he should be okay, but it's a niggling doubt, but worth it to stop 2 victory point scoring for the Suicide Squad, which is what they need to stop their heads from popping. Right, next up, as a reaction to that, the Suicide Squad, played another one of the Joker's cards from their objective deck. So Long It's Been a Gas, which has its own huge amount of writing, but basically boils down nice and easy to when Lincoln March revealed that suspect marker, the stinky fish, he immediately gets to place a suspect marker of his own, and however he also suffers enervating 2, which will reduce his effort limit in the next time he gets to try to use it. Also though, it does score the Suicide Squad 2 instant victory points, which is very useful for them. It makes up for the fish. And finally, noticing that they just placed a suspect marker of their own, the Court of Owls then played the Shadow Claw from their own hand for 2 victory points, but all they have to do is place a suspect marker within 4 inches of an enemy model that has at least 1 blood marker. And Killer Frost got hit by Strix's throwing knives earlier in the turn, so she qualified, so 2 points for each crew in that particular exchange. What an odd turn. Okay, right, moving on. Katana activated next along the back wall here, and she just moved forward a little bit to put down a suspect marker. Remember, she had audacity, and as you can clearly see, she made that into a snitch. The Batman Crew's cards coming out. It doesn't actually have to be a Batman Crew affiliated model to do it. She could have put down a stinky fish earlier in the turn if she'd wanted to, but she wanted to, well, it was now the time for the snitch. Wanted to leave it at the end of the turn when there was less time for the Court of Owls to react and move close, because they're a fast crew. But if you all recall, 3 victory points if there's no enemies within 4 inches of that snitch by the end of the turn. This will score 3 mighty points for the Suicide Squad, much needed as well. She only crept forward a little bit because if she went forward too far forwards, there's still Ephraim over there in the back corner. He's got quite high movement himself, being an acrobat and having genetic mutation as a purchasable piece of war gear. Forgot to mention actually, the Talons in this crew have got a whole huge variety of purchased war gear across their ranks, so they're probably moving a little bit faster and dodging a little bit more and being a little bit more hidden from sight through camo vesting than you might otherwise realise. I'll try and cover it as it becomes apparent, but yes, Ephraim over there, I do happen to know he does have a very prodigious movement, so she's only gone forward a little bit to put down the snitch to make sure that she can score it. Okay, let's move on. To finish off the Court of Owls activations for turn 1, Ephraim Newhouse moved through the sewers using a manipulate action. He had audacity. He was not inspired anymore because Lincoln March has moved away. He had to at some point, so not everyone could get inspired. Yes, and in so doing, he's moved into contact with Killer Croc. Now I'm just going to bring you back around the table because I left the cards behind because I'm a smarty pants like that. The first thing he did, well, in terms of cards playing, he first of all from the hand as a resource played an Owl's Tail to make Katana prey. Because Katana was moved left at the back, she was actually within 4 inches of this owl marker here by accident. By me. And Ephraim Newhouse can use opponent suspect markers for the purposes of marking people as prey, because he counts enemy suspects as friendly. Now the snitch marker does count as an enemy suspect. It specifically says that marking someone as prey should remove that snitch marker. However, snitch markers can't be removed, so I don't know if the removal of said suspect marker is a requirement or it's just something that happens, but it's not the sort of thing that's specifically covered in the rules, and I'm not really too fussed about that. It's more sort of a you know, I can't imagine that they're going to need to come up with that kind of weird. This is like this is a confluence of several special rules all coming together. So really, I can't fault anyone for this. I'm just going to take, you know, mark Katana's prey, but I'm not going to pick up the snitch marker. That way both teams get what they want. It seems fair that way. And yeah, there you go. That's the resource card, played for the Court of Owls. And then as an objective from the Court of Owl's hand came the Court's secure bases to make use of the fact that they've placed their owl markers a little bit wonky. This owl marker at the back here in the middle, well, sort of towards the back, was chosen as the owl marker affected by this. Basically, while there were no enemies around it at the end of each enemy model activation, that is, there'll be a counter ticking up on that. If that reaches 3, then this card will score for 2 victory points for the court. It's a slow burn, but it can cause enemies to have to redeploy quite quickly and rapidly, and that's not good for a small unit count crew like the Suicide Squad. Right, over to the Suicide Squad to finish off the turn's activations. Will Smith, aka Deadshot, activated finally for the Suicide Squad and to finish off the turn. First of all, he used his custom machine gun from up here to fire down at Lincoln March. The whole slew of special rules that Deadshot has were really quite useful. It meant he was hitting on 3s. But Lincoln March's power armor is tough, shall we say? Very, very tough indeed. Despite almost all the shots hitting, Deadshot didn't get the strength die on any of his guns due to the power armor, and the first shot actually only did 2 blood damage there, and it did 4 blood damage altogether. However, the enervated, don't forget, Lincoln March could make that one effort to reduce that down to 2 blood damage. Seeing the effect of the power armor, Deadshot used his bullet time ability with his special action, pulled out his guns. I'm guessing there are a couple of the various pistols he has around him, and opened up a massive fusillade of fire on the owl, and caused 3 points of blood, 3 points of stun, which was then reduced to just 3 points of stun by the power armor and a whole bunch more efforting there. Okay, so yes, I mean the only way through this power armor is to make him use it to the point where he can't continue to use it. In other words, give him so much stun damage he can no longer make efforts. So that's what Deadshot used his prodigious amounts of firepower to do. He's used up 2 of his 4 rounds of ammunition across his various firearms, but we'll see if it was worthwhile. That is a few counters there, and yes, the best way to get rid of this guy, if you really want to get rid of this guy, is to hit him repeatedly and hard. Okay, didn't satisfy any criteria for placement of cards, etc, etc, so we're going to move on to the recount phase and see what happens and who scored what. Okay, I've gone through everything in the fourth round, i.e. the recount phase, shall I say. Each model that took some stun damage has reduced that by 1. So on to cards. First of all, for the Court of Owls, Terrible Accident did not score for them because they weren't able to remove Deadshot as a casualty this turn. They never really had much chance, to be honest. But however, they did score Gotham is Ours because the suspect marker here and here managed to satisfy those criteria for them nicely. Okay, so that's 2 victory points on the board for the court. For the Suicide Squad, they didn't score the Stinky Fish, recall. However, the Snitch certainly did, so that's 3 crucial victory points for them. And if you recall, all the way back at the beginning, they played Die Hard on Harley Quinn, who is still up and running around and hitting things, so that is 2 victory points for them. I believe that takes, yes it does, it takes the score for the Suicide Squad to 7 victory points for the end of the turn. The only reason I'm keeping a running count in this game is because it's crucial. The Suicide Squad have to reach a certain threshold of victory points by the end of each turn, otherwise one of their random squad members' heads explodes and they get removed as a casualty. They needed to get at least 6 points by the end of the first turn, and they've reached 7, so that doesn't happen. They're okay for now. By the end of turn 2, they need to have reached 10 points, so still the pressure's not off, but they've got a decent head start on that. Okay, right, I think that finishes off. Oh yes, Lincoln March did not suffer from poison. It was not sufficient to take him down a peg. So right, let's move on to turn number 2. Okay, raise the plan and take the lead, both done for turn number 2 now. In terms of cards played from the hand, there were none in the initiative phase, and the initiative roll actually came up as 3-2 in favour of the Suicide Squad, so they'll be going first this turn. When the raise the plan phase took place next, and I'll shake you through who got Audacity. On the Suicide Squad side, you see Harley Quinn there, Killer Frost, Deadshot, and if I move around, Katana has Audacity once again. Killer Croc left without it. Staying with in this particular camera angle, you'll see that Ephraim Newhouse has got an Audacity for the Court of Owls, as does Strix, Henry Ballard, and of course Lincoln March needs that special action to activate his jump jets. The court actually did play Terrible Accident once again in the second phase, the raise the plan phase, to remove the enemy boss as a casualty. If they do, they get 3 points. That can happen any point during the turn. Like I said, it helps cycle the deck. Okay, let's move on to activations in a turn. Well, let's hope we get some more carnage now the gangs are embedded with each other. So as the Suicide Squad had initiative this turn, they kicked things off with Killer Croc, who didn't have Audacity but was still in base contact with 2 of the Owls and wanted to get some use out of him before he got turned into Shoes. And yes, so he used his melee attack against Nathaniel O'Malley there, and he put effort in. The Owl didn't put effort in, but wishes he did now, because well, it was a surprisingly good roll, and with the avalanche of attacks coming his way, caused 5 blood damage. 5 hits got through basically, which weren't defended against, which matches the endurance value of the Talon, and so Nathaniel O'Malley will be dead from that, unfortunately. This allows the Suicide Squad to score Dirty Job for 1 point, just 1 point, but it's a joint with getting a model off the board for the opponent, so I'm glad it only scores 1 point. It'd be too good otherwise. But yes, there you go, made a enemy model KO'd or a casualty, which they just did. So yes, so there you go. Let's move on and see how the Owls handle that. For the first Court of Owls activation for turn 2, Henry Ballard took the mantle, shall we say, and he first of all played as a resource, as opposed to an objective, from the hand, the Owl's Labyrinth for 1 resource point. Here's the text. It's the one we saw in the first Owls game, I seem to recall we used. Basically, move an enemy model marked as prey up to 4 inches, which is Katana, and she was within 4 inches of this Owl marker still. She hadn't had a chance to move away yet, which furthermore actually instead allowed the Court of Owls to move her into contact anywhere with a sewer marker. So why not use this sewer marker, which is currently getting quite a lot of use at the moment. Might as well just not put that cover back on, just leave it off. And yes, that means that so Katana moved into the middle of the board where she could not avoid really being picked on for much longer. Henry Ballard had the grapple gun, so he moved all the way across here and hit her quite hard with his owl knife. Well, stabbed her then. She used her maximum amount of effort she could, as did Henry Ballard there, and unfortunately, all was said and done, he had a pretty good round of attacking, despite the fact that she has a defensive Tanto which allows her to reroll her defensive dice. It wasn't sufficient to stop her from being knocked out in turn. As you can see, I've marked it there. 3 hits got through. Add that onto the 3 efforts she made, that was exceeding her, that was equal to her willpower of 6, which, yes, like I said, makes her knocked out, removes her Audacity marker. There's some crucial actions down for the Suicide Squad. Yes, so that's that. Let's move on. Deadshot activated for the Suicide Squad, and he decided, whilst he was still here, before he moved, he'd open up with his twin 9mm cannons, his wrist guns I think they are, and at Lincoln March again, and despite both hits getting through, Lincoln activated his power armor once again. This is a 2 effort there. You can see he did so with not good grammar, but I think you get the idea, to nullify all that damage. But yeah, it's 2 more points of stun that he's starting to run out of. And yeah, he is taking up all of Deadshot's ammo though. But having done so, Deadshot moved across the railings with impaired movement to within 4 inches of this L marker, which is where the court secured bases is currently ticking down. So just to deny it on the cusp of scoring for the Court of Owls. So yes, that's some more damage done to the Owls leader and denying some victory points. So not too bad there. Ephraim Newhouse activated for Court of Owls. He first of all he had audacity, if you recall. He put the boots in heavy style to Katana, as you can see over there. By all those blood damage are belong to her, to use the dank meme from the kids from like 10 years ago. And yes, she's dead. With that, he managed to score. Where is my card? Yes, Talon's Claw. For 2 points, remove an enemy model marked as prey as a casualty. It was quite a while coming, midway through turn 2, but he managed to do so. She was marked as prey, and yes, she's dead. So yeah, that's 2 points and another model down. Well, another model down on the board. Not bad, turn 2 compared to turn 1. Having done so, he then moved around to his current position, and he played as a resource an Owl's Tail from the hand, which it marked Killer Frost as prey, as you can see there, using this suspect marker, which I'll pick up once I've finished shooting this little section here. Okay, so not bad. He's also so he's closing in on the on Deadshot. They've removed a Suicide Squad model. So yes, that could have some crucial ability effects later on in the game as the Suicide Squad struggles to start scoring. Okay, let's see. Killer Frost up for the Suicide Squad. First of all, she used her Ice Dagger's shooting ability from over here at Lincoln March once again. Once again, his power armor kicked in to reduce all the damage taken, just to the 2 efforts there. That does take him up to his effort maximum though. He's down to 1 stun damage remaining, and he's gone, but he's soaked up so much damage, I think it's worthwhile. She then, noticing that she was marked as prey, she made herself scarce. She doesn't get scared, scarce, and she moved over here. And yes, so that concludes her turn. She cannot do anything else. She can't put down a suspect marker or anything because she used her shooting attack. Right, moving on. Lincoln March went up for the Court of Owls, and he moved into contact. Oops, he's been knocked a little bit away by mistake. So there you go. He's back in contact now. Moved into contact with Deadshot. Sick of being shot at. He used his claws. He's got combo with those as well. So he can do a huge amount of damage in 1 round. Deadshot knew this and put all his effort in, and as the big 3 stars there, that's all his effort. Stun damage he's taken, which meant only the strength die actually got through at the end of the day, which not too, which was can't be avoided and not too bad. So 4 stun damage and 1 blood for Deadshot there, who, don't forget, as the enemy boss, they need to keep him alive to stop the Owls from scoring their 3-point terrible accident card. As a resource, in Lincoln March's turn, the Court of Owls played Gotham is Ours. They used that, if I just bring up the text, it allows them to move a marker up to 4 inches away. That actually was this owl marker, the one that's got the court secured bases ticking down on it. Wanted to move it away from both Killer Frost and Deadshot so it could start counting down again in future Suicide Squad turns and actually score. Furthermore, from the hand, as an objective card in Lincoln March's turn, the court played the court secured bases on this owl marker, which has travelled up here now. So the Suicide Squad are really going to have to start stretching themselves very thin in order to stop these cards from scoring now, because that's another one with a timer on, which will run down every time a Suicide Squad model activates and doesn't finish within 4 inches of one of these 2 owl markers. Right, so that concludes Lincoln March's turn, and the Suicide Squad really have got to get some points on the board to stop someone's head bursting by the end of the turn. Harley Quinn took the last action for the Suicide Squad this turn, and as you can see, she's moved to place a Stinky Fish using another It Doesn't Look Fresh card from the hand. 2 victory points if that's still in play at the end of the turn, which it most likely will be, there being very few owls left and none in range to stop her. She also moved back to within 4 inches, as you can see, of this owl marker, just to prevent it from scoring the court secure bases. She would truly love to have gone in and walloped Lincoln March or any of the other Talons, but she's got to score points, otherwise it could be her head exploding at the end of the turn. So it's quite thematic for how the Suicide Squad doesn't get to act how they want to. They've got to fulfill the mission. Okay, let's see what the owls can do for the remainder of the turn. Right, I've completed the owls' turns, both of them. First of all, sorry, I'll just show you 1880's Talon. Didn't have audacity, she was knocked down. She just got up and moved over here into Inspire range, perhaps for next turn, from Lincoln March. So that's her finished with. Then, more interestingly, Strix took the last activation of the turn, as you can see her just there, and she moved up into contact with Deadshot, who was already engaged with Lincoln March, and she set about him with her paired katanas. He efforted 3 times, she efforted 3 times to put the dice back in. She hit eventually with every single attack, including the strength die. His defense was reduced by 1 because he was outnumbered in close combat already, you see. So he got a miracle roll and managed to block 3 out of 3 on the with his remaining defense die, meaning that only 2 hits got through for 4 blood damage, which amazingly was just enough to stop him from being picked up as a casualty. Living by the skin of their teeth, the Suicide Squad, I'll say. So yes, no cards scored for relating to that for the Court of Owls. However, if I just bear with me while I pick up a card which I left out of reach. Well done me. Katana did, however, play the court secure bases again. That's the same card that's come out twice already. They're now picking the last owl marker, because why not? So all the 3 owl markers now have got the court secure bases ticking down on them. The Suicide Squad really needs to pick up on that, perhaps, or just allow them to score. So yes, let's finish off the turn's shenanigans with the recount phase. Okay, turn 2 recount finished now. A smattering of stun damage has come off each model, the models where it applies to, and having a look at cards, obviously you can see the Stinky Fish is still there, so that's 2 points. Crucially for the Suicide Squad, that takes them up to the 10 points they needed to have this turn to just avoid anyone else's head exploding. Hurrah for them. In terms of the Court of Owls, they played a terrible accident, remember, and they were just denied at the very last, but they don't score those 3 points, so that's not going so well for them. I do believe it looks like the court might be actually being outscored at the moment by the Suicide Squad, if memory serves, but it's really, I don't fancy the squad's chances too much, given how many owls are closing in on their position and how much damage they've taken. But hey, it's about cards and scoring, not about just killing models, so we'll see how things pan out in turn 3. Okay, the take the lead and raise the plan phases are all done for turn number 3 now. So the initiative roll came up as a 2-1 in favour of the Suicide Squad once again, so they have the initiative for the coming turn. No cards played in phase 1, however phase 2, the Razor Plan phase, saw Terrible Accident come out once again for the Court of Owls. That ability to cycle through the deck and pick and keep the cards you want is really proving useful for them. The way they get through them by playing them so many resources and just going through it, very much coming into play now. So another 3 points if Deadshot bites the dust by the end of the turn. And don't forget, they've still got 6 potential victory points wrapped up in various Courts Secure Bases cards tied into those owl markers. So yeah, big points on the board for the Court of Owls if they get lucky. In terms of audacity markers, it was a lot easier for the Suicide Squad because it's every model that's left. So Killer Croc, Harley Quinn, Killer Frost, and Deadshot all get one. And for the Court of Owls, it was a case of picking which model didn't get one, and that was going to be Henry Ballard this time. There he is. So that means 1880's Talon gets one. Lincoln March, of course, being the leader, should get one. Ephraim Newhouse, and if you can just see it there, Strix. Very narrow model, that one. So hopefully you saw her. Okay, let's move on, get some activations done, get some killing done. Deadshot took the lead for the Suicide Squad because he was about to be made into chop suey, and He shrewdly realised that despite the fact he had plenty of targets and a round of ammunition left before he had to move, everyone he was able to shoot at was either an acrobat or power armoured, thus rendering most of his ability to shoot them pretty much moot anyway by the end of when all was said and done. So instead of wasting his last round of ammunition and just staying there waiting to die, he moved around to the other side of the subway and put down a suspect marker, which of course turned out to be another stinky fish. I don't know what Amanda Waller's got the Suicide Squad doing, but it doesn't look fresh. And so for 2 victory points, if that fish is still there, there are a lot of Talons around who can reveal it, but they get poisoned for their troubles. And if they're removing suspect markers, maybe they won't have enough actions left to also finish off Deadshot. But yeah, it just means they've got to, it's a way of potentially scoring points, which the Suicide Squad does need. So there we go. Let's move on. 1880s, Talon took the first activation for the Court of Owls, and she moved. First of all, she had audacity, and she was also inspired by Lincoln March from when she moved last turn. She put down a suspect marker and immediately scored the Shadow Claw for the Court of Owls. 2 points. She put down a suspect within 4 inches of an enemy model that had at least 1 blood marker, and Deadshot and Killer Frost both fit that criteria, so that's 2 points for the court straight off. She then moved into contact with Deadshot and attacked him in trying to finish him off, and she did so. She put in maximum effort, he put in what effort he could left, and yes, she got 2 hits through, including the strength die. It's 4 blood damage, easily takes him over his 7 endurance, which will finish him off, unfortunately, and therefore the terrible accident card will score immediately for the court. Because it was played earlier in the turn, it can score at the same time as the other card, so 3 points there for the Court of Owls. Very high scoring points. Okay, back to the Suicide Squad. Harley Quinn, now just been made the de facto boss of the Suicide Squad crew. She activated next, and she moved into contact with Lincoln March over here, as you can see, and she smacked him with her hammer. She had to put a couple of effort in. He decided not to put any in at all, but eventually she managed to get those 2 crucial points of stun damage through, which actually knocked him out. Remember, he was quite flagging heavily, having overused his power armor to quite a big extent. She did this because she really wanted to score Emancipation, which is her signature card from the Suicide Squad's hand, for 3 points. The active friendly model, that's her, makes the opponent's boss, that's him, KO, whilst there were no other friendly models within 6 inches, and there weren't. Deadshot having moved away strategically again at the beginning of the turn, previously. And yes, so 3 crucial points for the Suicide Squad, scored instantaneously. They need to reach 14 by the end of the turn to prevent head booms. Just as an addendum to Harley Quinn's turn, it's worth mentioning that 2 of the 3 court secure bases, the one for, I think it's this guy up here and this little guy down here, they both scored now for 4 total points for the Court of Owls, which is a big hit, but Harley really needed to get those 3 points for her own team. After all, they're the only ones with bombs in their heads. Strix swung in with her paired katanas on Killer Frost, having moved over here. Remember, she had audacity, and yes, she had a great turn. But despite Killer Frost putting in 3 efforts and she matched it, Strix managed to carve her up badly. 3 hits got through. She's got the overwhelming rule on her blades, which means Killer Frost, despite putting her adaptability into defense, meaning 5s were needed to hit as well, and she had 5 defense die, she needed 2 successful defense die to actually cancel out even one of those hits, and she only got 1. So when all was said and done, 6 points of damage will kill Killer Frost. So yeah, another hammer blow to the Suicide Squad, I'm afraid. And it does score for 2 points, Talon's Claw, because Killer Frost was marked as prey. That fulfills the criteria, so 2 more points for the Court of Owls. Whew. Suicide Squad hit back with Killer Croc activating, deciding that Strix is too powerful to be allowed to have any more activations. He moved across and attacked her in close combat. As you can see, 3 hits got through after all was said and done. He didn't put any effort in and she had no effort limit left to give, so that was enough. She was on her last point of stun damage before going unconscious anyway, so she has gone unconscious. That allows the Suicide Squad to play Dirty Job for 1 point. Yeah, there you go. So 1 more point down, and could be a crucial. I think it's a crucial one there. So moving on. Just Owls left. F from Newhouse activated. He first of all he moved around the corner to pick up the stinky fish as a reveal. Actually, no. First thing he did was to put down a suspect marker over there next to those 2 audacity markers that shouldn't be there. Never mind, ignore them. He then moved, then picked up the stinky fish, giving himself the poison counter, as you can see there. Finally, he, as a resource play from the hand, Owl's Knight came out and. It basically turns Killer Croc into prey. We'll be picking up that suspect marker very soon. Okay, and that concludes his turn. I'll just polish off the last Owl's moves and report back. Okay, I just found out it's just Henry Ballard left to go. Could have merged his turn with the last one, but never mind. He activated, didn't have audacity. He just moved over here, so he's in a good place to cover the remainder of the board with his grapple gun, perhaps in the last turn if he needs to. And he put down from the hand of the Court of Owl's Labyrinth, whereby choose an enemy model marked as prey. So that's Killer Croc. If Killer Croc moves next turn, this card will score for 2 points. If he doesn't move, he gets enervated 2. So yeah, it's a tricky one, but yeah, the Suicide Squad running out of options altogether, I think. Right, let's move on to the recount phase and see what's what. Okay, the recount phase now completed for turn number 3. So as we do know, the It Doesn't Look Fresh card did not score because that stinky fish is long gone. So yeah, unfortunately no cards scored there in the end phase for either crew. This owl marker, which has now moved on top of the workman's hut in a swapsy with its friend, is still ticking down the court's secure bases, the other 2 having scored, of course. And yes, both of the talons, the owls, whatever you want to call them, that were knocked out, both recovered from not being knocked out to just being knocked down. They're innately tough and able to get back up from being knocked out. It's because of their regeneration factor. And yeah, so I believe that it brings an end to the 3rd turn. I did check. The Suicide Squad has 14 victory points, which is exactly what they needed to avoid anyone's head exploding. So yeah, that was just in the nick. Let's see what happens in the last turn, see if anyone can score some last minute cards. Okay, the first 2 phases now done for the last turn, and from the hand, no cards were played in the take the lead phase. However, the initiative roll came up 4 apiece, which means that now the Owls have got initiative because they did not have it last turn. In terms of the raise the plan phase, it was easy to work out who got audacity markers for the most part. The Suicide Squad only have 2 models remaining, Harley Quinn and Killer Croc, and both of them got audacity. For the Owls, it was just a case of working out who didn't get audacity, and they plumped for Strix, who's currently locked down and therefore less likely to be able to get use of it, since Killer Croc's towering over her, probably about to finish her off anyway. In terms of cards played, the Court of Owls did put 2 cards down in the second phase. First of all, they played Terrible Accident, which came up again in their hand. So now Harley Quinn is the boss. They have to kill her for 3 victory points at any point during the forthcoming last turn. And they also played Gotham is Ours. That's the card they played at the beginning, where the court only has to pick 2 pieces of scenery and the what was I thinking? Sorry, yes, the oh, blimey, Lee, come on. Yes, the Suicide Squad, that's what I was going for. The Suicide Squad has to pick 1 piece of scenery, and our suspect marker has to be within 4 inches of each by the end of the turn. The Suicide Squad actually picked this dumpster, over here in the back corner as a difficult one for the Owls to get to. And yes, so bit challenge accepted, I think. Let's move on, see who can score those last turn's points. I have completed the first activation for the turn for the Court of Owls, but I did forget to mention which two pieces of scenery they chose to use for their objective card, Gotham is Ours. They've gone for the same two they used before, the subway and the Capital Metro State Building, both of which have got plenty of suspect markers already around them, so I forgot to tell you about them earlier. But moving on, Ephraim activated for the court. He put in 3 efforts when he attacked Killer Croc. He also played Terrible Accident as an objective card, as a resource card, the opposite of an objective card, for 1 resource point. The effect of each effort was doubled, so he had a mountain of attacks going in, and as you've probably seen, he really did a number on Killer Croc, and that Killer Croc is dead. There were no victory points scored from this, despite him being marked as prey, sorry. It was purely out of spite and to cut down the Suicide Squad's chances from slim to none. Right, let's see what's going to happen next. Okay, Harley Quinn activated. Oh, I'll just put the activated marker there. I paid for them, I'm going to use them. She could have walloped Lincoln March or any of the Owls to finish off, but she needed to think about points, and she moved over to here with her Audacity counter, and she's just about to reveal this suspect marker, and when she does, she'll score comb through everything from the Suicide Squad's hand. 2 points is just reveal an enemy suspect marker. It gives her extra cards into her hand to choose from, but that's really kind of moot now. But 2 points is 2 points, and we'll see what happens with the Owls next. Okay, I've just finished off the Court of Owls activations for turn 4. They were the only crew with anything left to do, so off we go. Henry Ballard went first. He used his grapple gun to move all the way from the centre to over here at the back. He put down a suspect marker, thus guaranteeing the scoring of, what's it called? Gotham is Ours, that was played in the second phase. There you go. 2 points, and they've got all of their suspect markers down, and there's nothing the Suicide Squad can do to stop them now. Finally, a combination of Owls activated. Didn't even get to Strix in the end, not that she could have done anything without Audacity, but between Lincoln March and the 1880s Talon, you'll see that they did a huge amount of damage to Harley Quinn for very little effort, and they even managed to make her prey before the end as well, thus ensuring that a Terrible Accident scored for 3 points as they played at the beginning of the turn, but also Talon's Claw came out of their hand for the last time for 2 points. Yes, vicious. And of course, when Harley did activate, that actually made sure that the last court secure bases did score back then. I forgot to mention it, but it did. So a mountain of points just into the Court of Owls, and the Suicide Squad had just lost their last model on the board. So with that, I think we'll take it to the final count. Let's see who's won. I think we can guess, but let's see what the margin of victory is actually, shall we? Let's see if we can be surprised that way. Right, so for the final count, let's see how many points the Suicide Squad got first, shall we? So we got 2, 4, 7, I know my adding, 8, 10, 13, 14, and finally 16 points. Pretty pitiful haul there from the Suicide Squad, I'm afraid. They didn't really get a chance to shine, to be honest. So let's have a look at the Court of Owls, see what they scored in the end. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 13, 15, 17, 19, 22, 25, 24, 26. I can add the good. I can't speak the good though. 26. So 26 plays 16. A 10-point margin. This is pretty much the biggest. Well, the most crushing defeat I've had on my channel so far. Sorry, Suicide Squad there. But the Owls managed an amount of points which would have challenged any crew on their day to beat. I think just starting with the Court of Owls, I really think I think I've hit the good point with the right number of models, and I've finally got a grasp on how all their cards sort of synergize together with the way they work. It took them a while to get going because I put that down. I still haven't quite got the placement of the owl markers down yet, but there's only 3 markers and there's a lot of board to cover, so maybe I'll get there one day, or maybe it'll always be a challenge. Maybe that's part of it. But once the owl markers were, in position, shall we say, and there just weren't enough activations for the Suicide Squad to get away, it was very difficult for them for the Suicide Squad to really shut them down, and well, it's the score shows what shows the disparity between the sides. Those owls are really, really tough, and the Suicide Squad wasn't doing enough damage, to really bring it back and even up the numbers at all. So when the squad members started dropping, they weren't getting back up, and it was showing. I think the Suicide Squad might have suffered from the fact this is the first time I've ever used them. I might not have taken the right combination of models, maybe need more than 5 of them, but then quality will suffer, and maybe there's some secret combination of objective cards that I totally overlooked while I was doing it. I mean, again, familiarity with your crews is as important in this game as it is in any other. I like to mix it up for, obviously for the purposes of the channel, but even before, when I was playing with friends, I like to take a different crew each time because I just love the characters. That's kind of why I do this, and rather than just to win and get used to one crew I use over and over again. But if you're playing competitively, for example, or something like that, you really do benefit from using the same crew multiple times. Even if you modify the members slightly, you tweak it and you get used to the cards, and yeah, you that's how you become a better player with that particular faction. I'm going to carry on mixing it up because I'm stupid, but we'll see how that goes, and I'm sure it'll make for better channel content, shall we say, rather than me using the same crews again and again and again. Anyway, I'll stop waffling on now. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed watching this game. Give me any comments or whatever, and to show some engagement as YouTube demands, but more to the point, just give me some feedback please, to show me if I can do anything better, really. And I really appreciate all the feedback I've had, and I really appreciate everyone who's watched. Thank you so much. Okay, well, we'll see you next time, and take care, everyone.